More Octafence here today. Wanted to do a video about something that I've become kind of interested in over the last year or so. I'm really not a rifleman per se, but I have been finding some rifles, some military surplus rifles, which I do have some interest in, and I'm kind of a history buff. And so I did teach military history actually for ROTC during my active duty years, and so I'm a little interested in that. And so over the last year or two, I've been finding some old military Mausers in pawn shops and on websites and around. So I've been kind of collecting them. And I didn't really start out to collect them, but I keep running into them, and so as I run into deals, I pick them up. And I don't think I paid more than about $300 for any of them, and because I've got them mostly at pawn shops. And so anyway, let's take a look at some of these. That's what I want to talk about today. Kind of a quick history of the progression of the Mauser rifle. And to start, let's look at this. This is the model 1891, and this has an external magazine. This is in 7mm Mauser. It's stripper clip loaded through here. Cocks on closing. Has two lugs, one here, one on the other side. And this was one of the first smokeless powder military rifles, and if you recall, smokeless powder came along the very end of the 1800s. So in the early 1900s, smokeless powder rifles for the military were just becoming kind of the thing. And this is a model 1891. So in 1891, Mauser developed this rifle, interestingly enough, and they developed it for the smokeless powder Spitzer cartridge. And interestingly enough, the Germans weren't interested in it. So being businessmen, Mauser sold it to a lot of other countries. Belgium. This one's an Argentine Mauser. It's a Modelo Argentino. And this particular rifle was made in 1900. You can tell by the serial number, incrementing of the serial number. But so this one is 117 years old. It's in great condition. You can see the wood's in great condition. Cartouches are all intact, except the one here, that's the Argentine crest, has been ground off. But the rest of the serial numbers all match, and it's a great rifle. It's chambered in 7.62 by 53, which will give you a little bit of blowback on this. And I've been reloading for it, so I reload them down a little bit, so they're just for plinking. But this is the first, probably the first modern military smokeless powder rifle. The Mausers put this out, sold it widely to many, many nations. A lot of South American countries. Belgium, I think, picked this up, and a lot of Turkey. No, well, maybe Turkey got big into the next model, which is the 1893. So let's look at that one. The 1893 Mauser. Notice now this one does not have that external magazine. They've dropped that. They figured out how to stagger the magazine. This one also has hold open, so you have to, you know when you're out of ammo. This one cocks on closing, and again, it's only a two lug. So there's a lug here and a lug here. Now this one's got the big extractor on it, and if you notice, well, I won't get it out, but this one now has a big extractor. So it's got that big extractor on the side there, and that has kind of become a Mauser thing, that big extractor on the side. So this one really kind of ramped up, modernized it, made it easier because of not having this outside magazine. This one was chambered in 7mm Mauser, very flat shooting, nice cartridge, and these were exported all over the place. This particular one's a Spanish Mauser, but they also went to Chile and all over the place. 1893 is the model on this one. Now, there's also some 1895, model 1895s, which those are a lot of the Chilean Mausers. But basically, it's the same gun. They just made it on different contract. So it was an 1895 contract for, say, Chile. This one was a contract for Spain, and many countries liked these, and some of these went to Turkey as well. The Turks like these, and so this one again is in pretty good shape, and it's 7mm. Just to show you quick, the bolt on this 1891. This 1891 doesn't have the same kind of extractor. You notice it's different. The bolt's different, and you can see the two lugs there. But it's got a different type bolt. So this was probably really the first one, and then from then on, the rest of the rifles got more advanced as they went. All right, the next one in the advancement was the Gewehr 88. This is the gun that was developed for the German Army in World War I. Now, here's where we get the third locking lug in the back. We still have the big extractor. You can still see the big extractor, and so this one now has really ramped up. There we go. This one has really ramped up what is needed. This one is also chambered in 8mm, 7.92 actually by 57, and this particular one was made for the Turkish military, I believe in 1918, and served with the Turks. But it was made in Germany, and other than having, this does not have the typical German long vizier, the big roller coaster, they call them roller coaster sights. But other than that, this is a real Gewehr 98, and in the World War I style configuration in 8mm. And that gun really is kind of the high point of the Mauser development. And after that, they refined some things, made some things a little more handy, but basically all of the design elements were there. The next iteration was the World War II iteration. This is the K98K. This is the gun that fought its way on the German side through World War II. This particular gun was made in Oberndorf, the main Mauser factory, in 1944. Sometime after that, it was captured by the Russians and then eventually resold on the market, on the surplus market. This one is a great gun. Now these, this one cocks on closing, or cocks on open, sorry. The rest of them cocked on closing. This cocks on open, so when you open the bolt, you see it pushes back the spring, puts the spring under compression, so you can then fire the gun. So this one cocks on opening, so you can just pull the bolt up, rotating it up, cocks it. This is shorter, has a different magazine attachment, but it's got the same type sights. Really pretty much the same rifle as the Gewehr 98, but this is shortened up, called the carbine, the K98K, the carabiner, the carbine K98 carabiner. It makes for an easier, an easier rifle to carry in combat. And this is the famous Mauser of World War II, and this is a real one. Okay, very cool. So that one, that K98K is probably the top of the progression. Now, here, boy, and this one's sweating Cosmoline like crazy. sitting out here in the hot sun. I didn't soak all the cosmoline out of it after I got it, and it's bleeding cosmoline all over out of the wood. This one is what is a Mauser variant, and this is an example of what you had after World War I, when the Germans lost, of course, and the Germans were restricted from making arms and ammunition. And prior to World War I, the Germans had been the arms makers, especially the rifle makers, for most of the militaries throughout the world. And they lost that business because of losing the war. So other companies like FN, Fabrique Nationale in Belgium, picked that up. And so they got permission to use Mauser designs and Mauser variants and started building in 1924 this FN version. And this is what's called the short action, because the bolt is shortened in this one, and a K98 bolt will not fit into this gun. This is a shorter action. Now, did they do that because of some legal thing or because of some wartime requirement? I don't know really, but it's not an exact copy of a K98K, although it is very, very similar. Shoots the 8mm Mauser as well, and cocks on opening, as does the K98K. Now this one was probably made in Yugoslavia, or was probably made in Croatia, on FN tooling for the Croatian army, and then served through World War II. And then after World War II, when the country of Yugoslavia was formed, they pulled all these rifles in and remanufactured them in the contract of 1947. So they pulled all the old FN and M24s in, put on new stocks, you know, fixed them up, re-arsenaled them, re-blued them, whatever they had to do with them, and reissued them in 1947. And this is the M2447. Later they also manufactured M48s, which are very similar, very similar. Now, a lot of those kind of rifles are passed off as Mausers, which they are sort of. They're Mauser copies, if you will, but they were not made by Mauser. They were probably made on tooling provided by Fabrique Nationale, based on Mauser designs, and sold around. So the Belgians had these. The Czechs also had a gun called a VZ-24, which looked like this as well, and the Czechs were using that in their military. And so a lot of these post-World War II guns that look like Mausers and that are advertised as Mausers may actually be these 2447s or the M48s. Mauser design, very definitely a Mauser design. Probably Mauser probably had some royalties from it. I'm sure they had something to say about using their designs. But they were not made by Mauser in Germany. They were made on other tooling, probably Belgian, but or Czech or something else. But so anyway, these are very popular. You see these around a lot in pawn shops and surplus, and these are in 8mm, 8x57, and occasionally there was some old K98K Mausers that were left over in Croatia, Serbia, that area when World War II ended, and they got thrown into this rebuild as well. So occasionally you can find one of these old Yugoslav Mausers that really is a K98K that's been put back together, because there were German troops there when the war ended, and all of their supplies and arms and ammunition all got turned in, which the Yugoslavs took over. So you might find one that's a real German-made K98K capture, if you will, that ends up looking like a Yugoslav Mauser with the Yugoslav crest on it and things. But and you can find those occasionally. But basically, that's the way that it goes. that's the quick and dirty history of these Mauser rifles, and I think they're very cool. I like them. They are not expensive to collect. I think I paid, I don't know, 200, 150, 250, 250, and maybe 300 for the 2447. But that's after they became real popular and the price was kind of being driven up. And that's, of course, I bought all these during Obama. During the Obama administration, when the price of all guns was sky high. But so anyway, there they are. That's the iteration: 91, 93, 98, K98K, and then the other Belgian-made or Czech-made, the other Mausers. There is one, a 96 in here, Swedish Mauser. I do not have a Swedish Mauser. My brother has one, and they're basically the same. The big change, the big iteration was from this one with the external magazine to this one with the internal magazine to this one, the 88 or the 98 with the internal magazine, the safety lug, cock on open, and the bigger caliber, the 8mm caliber. So it goes from initial to improvement, and then the World War II version, which had all the developments of the World War I version, only was shorter, easier to handle, and so on. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I hope that was interesting, and I just wanted to put something together. It's a nice day. I had some time this afternoon, so I thought I'd do it. So hope that's interesting to you, and if it is, subscribe to us, and we'll keep putting out videos. So thanks. See you later.